Welcome back to the channel. This week on the Kiwi Barefoot Gardener, we're looking at Composting 101, the Kiwi Barefoot Gardener's Way. And it's the time of year that we plant the tomato seeds, a really exciting time for me. Come potter with me in the garden. My name is Dawn and I am the Kiwi Barefoot Gardener. Good morning. It is Wednesday the 3rd of September and I'm outside by the compost bins. Now, I had planned to do two parts on the composting. Part one was going to be last week's vlog, and then I was going to do part two this week's vlog. However, by the time I did the editing and what have you, last week's was way too long. It took me quite a while to edit it down to what it was. So I have decided to combine them. So we're going to do a wee bit of time travel. We're going to look at last week's bit first, and I'll keep referring to the fact we were going to do it two-part, but we will sort of do it in two parts. I'll do this part, I'll do the first part that we're going to see that I did last week, and then we'll catch up later in the vlog and do the second part, which we'll go through together. Good afternoon. Well, it's Thursday the 28th of August. It's fine. It's northwest and it's blowing. Not as hard as it was this morning, but it's still blowing. Now, I do have a mic thing over, so I'm hoping that the wind won't cause too much. So I'm going to also sort of slightly shield it. So now, what I was going to do today is part one of looking at really simple composting. And it's basically 101 of composting and looking at how you can make compost simply at home using the black daleks and not ending up with vermin and other things. So basically it's what you put in is what you get out. So if you're doing data analysis, if you put rubbish information in, you get rubbish data out. Or if you're doing something like baking or cooking, if you put poor quality goods in, you get poor quality food to eat. So this is what we're looking at today. So I'm going to look at my composting. It's nothing special. It's 3 bins. I do a one turn and then use it, and it's not hot composting because my bins don't get hot enough to do that. There's not enough volume for it basically, but we'll just have a quick look at what I do today, and then we'll probably follow up next week with looking at the finished product and what I'm doing with that, and doing a turn of one of my bins into the other bin and looking at what point you turn it and all those. Now, one of the things I hear quite a lot on Facebook groups and things, people, for a better word, complaining, mentioning, discussing that they've got vermin in their compost. Now, for my type of composting, which is just straight cold compost in daleks, it's really important that you don't use food that has been cooked, such as meat, pastas, anything like that, rice, you name it. Do not put that in your compost bin, because that's just an invitation to rats, mice and everything else. Also, any salad stuff that you've served and not been eaten, so like the end of your plate or anything like that, because it's often covered in dressings and things like that, oils, anything that covers food, don't use it. Okay, so no baking stuff, so no leftover cake, no leftover bread, nothing like that. Okay, all you want to put in your compost, if you're doing the sort of composting I'm doing, is things like veggie peels and garden bits and pieces. Okay, you do not want to put anything in there that will put an invitation out to the vermin. Okay, if you're doing hot composting and you're not close to the house like I am, and you've got room for a huge pile and you're doing the whole thing, you can get away with a lot of different things than what I can. But I've got 3 bins, I'm close to the house, and I'm not doing hot composting, so I do not want to invite the vermin. Though I do have 2 black fairy creatures that will probably deter them. So what do I put in my compost? So I put leaves, small stalks, the leaves from around veggies that I've got yucky and what have you. They all go in there, anything like that. Like if I've harvested a lettuce and I've taken it in before I serve it and what have you, the outer leaves and what have you all go in there. Anything that is fresh garden material of that sort. Now the other stuff I don't put in, and it's because I don't do hot composting, is anything with a seed, because without hot composting you're going to end up with seeds all through your stuff. So yeah, it's just not worth the hassle. So all that stuff goes into the green bin, and it goes off to the local council, and they tell us that they put it in a big hot compost, and under their hot composting, so it gets to be, I can't remember, I think it's about between 60 and 70 degrees Celsius, the seeds are destroyed. Well, not destroyed physically, but their viability is destroyed. So that's all good. As far as stalks and things like that are concerned, I do limit how much stalky stuff I put in, only because it just doesn't break down very quickly. A couple of years ago I put the stalks of the hydrangeas in, and yeah, even after going through the whole thing a couple of years after, it was still stalks in there. So now all I do is take the leaves off the hydrangeas and then biff them in. Bit time consuming, but you know, it is what it is. It depends your time and effort you want to put in. Now the amount of green to brown, so brown sometimes is described as carbon. It varies. So I put about 2/3 green to 1/3 carbon. But if you're in somewhere that it's really wet and you're using lots of wetty type stuff, you might want to increase your carbon. It's like when you're, for another analogy, baking. You know, sometimes you've got to add more moisture to the flour because the flour just needs a bit more that week. Yeah. So I do roughly that. Now, my brown is a mixture of things. So one of the things I use is when I sieve my bags of soil for the seed raising stuff, I end up with a lot of this, which is just the barky bits out of the compost, which when I dump it on as extra compost, if I haven't got enough onto my garden, I don't worry about sieving it, and it just goes in as is and it breaks down. But for my seed raising stuff, I don't want the barky bits in, but it makes a great brown for here. So yeah, I just throw bucket loads of that in. The other thing I use is cardboard. So non-shiny cardboard, so cardboard, probably showing some, oh no, yeah. So non-shiny cardboard like this, you know, the old corrugated stuff, no printing on it, no tape, no nothing, okay? And there's a debate whether you can do it with ink on or without. I try and minimise the amount of ink that I put in there, but you know, sometimes, like, you probably can't see this wee bit, it's got a wee bit of printing on it, but you know, that's not too much. And I cut it finely, and yes, it's laborious, but when you're sitting there watching telly or having a coffee or something like that, I just sit there and I chop my way through this. I got myself a good pair of scissors, and I don't sit down to just cut cardboard. I do it when I'm doing other things. And I just fill up the box, and when it's full and my bin needs it, I have it there. With the other stuff, I just have a few bags that I fill up as I go, and it's available when I need it. So that's what I tend to do. Some people say you can't use things like lemon rinds and orange rinds and what have you. I don't really worry about that. I sort of follow a bit of the Charles Dowding stuff, it can all go in. I certainly don't throw oxalis or anything like that in there, which he tends to just throw the whole lot in there. But I'm not precious about other things. It's just, But then again, he throws food, used food in his compost, but he's doing hot composting, and he's doing the whole 60-70 degrees, and he's got huge bins and a whole setup. My little setup is nothing compared to his. So that's what I'm doing with these guys. So today, basically, I'm just going to throw a bit of green in there that I pulled off the other day, and it does need some brown added to it because it's been it's had a fair bit of household greens and things like that from veggie peelings and things. So I'm just going to putter around doing that. I'll show you what it looks like at the moment, and I'll show you what it looks like after I've popped some greens in there, and then I'll show you what it looks like with the browns. And then next week I'll go through the other bins. I've got 3 bins, as I've said. My 2 outer bins are the ones that I use for the fresh stuff, and then I turn into the middle bin. We alternate which of the outer bins that we're using. So currently we're using this one. The other one's resting because it was full and it's just going down. What I need to do next week is empty the completed compost, and I'm probably going to have to bag it because I don't quite want it at the moment, but I need to empty that bin so that I can turn the other bin into it. So I've got that free, because this one, while it's only half full at the moment, it won't take long come spring that it will start filling up really quickly, so I need to make the space available. So that's what I'm going to do. So that's the bin currently. It's got paper towels in it because I line the bottom of my wee bin inside with paper towels, just so I'm not having to deal with muck and banana peels and all sorts of things in there. Excuse me. I will go and grab all the greens and things and throw them in there at the moment, and we'll have another look. Okay, so there's a whole lot of greens in there now. I've just got them pulled out. A whole row of kohlrabi that had literally bolted and gone to seed. Probably a combination of the slightly warmer weather and also that it was just riddled with the green grey aphids. They have really hammered some of my brassicas this year. I think it's probably the worst I've ever had. So that's a shame. But it is what it is. So that's as it is now. And I am going to add a layer of brown next. Okay, so I have popped in my browns. So on, if I can do it, this side is the bark chips and things, and then I've got my cardboard on the other side. Good thick layer. It will break down. I'll probably give this a wee drink. Now that's one thing you do need to watch. I know here in Canterbury I do, and the fact that these bins are in the sun, is your moisture level in your bin. So unfortunately, during summer I have to give these bins at least once a week a little drink, just to help with the breakdown of the stuff. Otherwise they just dry out and become hard and dry, and they don't do what they need to do. Good afternoon. It is Tuesday afternoon, the 2nd of September, and today is Tomato Day. I've spent the morning tidying up and getting things ready for getting my tomatoes on the heated pats and the propagation station. Yesterday I spent the day potting on and things like that, so I could move stuff from inside to the greenhouse, and then to do that I had to move a whole lot of stuff from the greenhouse out into the shelves units that I've got so that it could harden off. So it's taken me a day and a half of prep. In between time I've done a few other things like make banana muffins, but yeah, it is what it is. So this afternoon I am going to put my seeds in for my tomatoes. As I've said before, I've got a few projects that I want some of the extra stuff for, so I will look like I'm actually going to be planting quite a lot of seeds today, which I am, I suppose. So I've got my trays ready, and these will go onto the heated mats. And what I'm planning to do is for each variety of tomatoes, I'm going to do 4 seeds for each cell, and then I've got 4 cells for each variety. So that will give me potentially 16 of each variety. Now, we all know that not every seed pops up, so I've got a bit in there for just in case things don't pop up. So yeah, I'll be quite happy if I get, say 12 of each. Yeah, I'll be quite happy with that. But if I get more, all the better. Unfortunately, I haven't quite got enough room on the heated mats for them all. I've got 9 rows and 11 varieties. So that's without doing some of the extras from last year that I may throw a few seeds in from them that I've got left over from last year. So what I'm going to be doing is probably leaving things like the Sweet 100 today, because they grow really quickly, those cherry tomatoes. And the other one that I'll probably leave today is the Sun Gold. But I'll definitely be doing the other varieties that I've got put aside is Roma. I love Roma. I use it every year for making my sauces. So that one will definitely go in today. Beef steaks, I've got into growing them in the last couple of years. Never used to bother because, didn't. But a sliced beef steak on a piece of toast with some basil and some salt, yum. Yep. New one to me is the Cherokee Purple. I'm going to try that. That's another beef steak size one. And another new one for me is the Chef's Choice Bicolour. So that's another beefsteak one type. Now, a few of these other ones I couldn't get what I wanted for different reasons, but definitely doing Moneymaker. I do that every year. A lot of people don't think it's got a lot of taste and what have you, but I find it really nice for my salads and things, so definitely be doing Moneymaker. Not even sure how to pronounce this one. Is it Grossless Heirloom? Anyway, it's basically another medium-sized red tomato. One I had heard good reviews from, and I'm hoping that the reviews are good, play out, is a Russian red, which is another medium-sized tomato. And then, as I said, I've got my Sun Gold, and I've got the Sweet 100, but the other ones too that I'm doing in the cherries this year are a black cherry, which I've heard good reviews, and one I've done previously is Sunrise Bumblebee, and that is a really nice little tomato. So they're the ones I'm going to be doing today. I'll leave the Sweet 100 and the Sun Gold till I've got a bit of room, which probably will only be next week by the time I get a few of the things off it. At the moment I've got 2 of these size trays full of asparagus, so once they are ready to move on, I'll move them on to the 20 degree static ones. They're coming up, so another week they should all be up. Then I'll pop them onto the transition for the 20 degree, and then once they're a reasonable size, I'll get them off the heated pads, because if you leave them on the heated pads, any seedling too long, they'll just become long and leggy. So yep, that's my plan for today. I'm going to start with the Roma and then go on to the beefsteak type ones and work my way through. I don't do anything special with my seeds. I don't soak them, I don't do anything like that. I just pop them in, cover them up, and that's it. Right, that's the Roma done. So there's 16 there. Just thinking I may do a few more later on of those, because I want quite a few for me, so that I can do my sauce and things like that this year. And of course I want them for the other projects, so I may or may not. I'll just see what my strike rate's like. If I get a low strike rate, then I'll do another load. But otherwise, yeah, I'm happy with that. And I'm just going to work my way through these and see how I go to the end. But yeah, tomato time, yippee! I'll let these get to a good size with their true leaves, and then I'll separate them out into those small black pots that I've currently got the chilies and the eggplants, etc. in, and I'll put them into there for the next stage. By the time these are ready, I'll have already moved the other ones onto their next pot size. So yep, we're all good there. Okay, so that's 9 lots of tomatoes in, so that's good. Just the 2 left to go. I'm completely out of room. I've had to do a rejig and turf something off the thermostat onto the other ones. So yep, happy with that. See how I go in the next few days to see what I can turf off the thermostat mat onto the other one, get the other 2 in, because I'll do a whole tray of them. So very happy. Now we'll just keep an eye on them over the next few weeks and see how they go. And it will become Tomato Tuesdays. That sounds good. Catch you again soon. Okay, so this is part 2 of composting in the vlog, and this will be about what to do with your finished stuff and that you know it's finished, and look at turning and how you get it to the point that you want to get it to. There's a few things that I'll show you that have gone wrong with my one that I'm about to turn, and why they went wrong. But it's not the end of the world wrong. It's easy fixed. Yeah. Now, in the first part, I talked about vermin and all that sort of stuff, what have you. In the intervening time, I've been doing a bit of YouTube watching as I do, and I found a fairly recent, like in the last week, YouTube episode by Hugh Richards, who is a Welsh guy who is a chef who is also into doing his own gardening and things like that, and he was talking about composting. And this particular episode that he talks about is the 5 myths of composting, and I'm going to pop that in the link to that in the description, so if you want to go and have a look at that. It's fairly short, I think it's about 10 maybe 12 minutes, and it talks about some of the things that we talked about. So about not putting food in your compost. It talks about smell, which we didn't mention, but yeah, how to make sure that you don't get the smell, or what to do when you do get the smell. So there's some really good info in a fairly compact episode there for you as well. So my plan for today is first to tackle the completed compost, and I want to be able to probably bag that up because I want to use it on the garden in a few weeks time, but not quite yet because I'm not just ready for it. But I definitely need to turn someone's come to see me. I definitely need to turn the other one into the middle bin because of the little issue that I had with it, and it's not a big issue, it just needs turning. Okay, this is my ready to use compost, and as you can see it's quite woody still, but it's basically ready to go. It's fairly moist, which is good, that's where I want it. I don't want it dry. So I'm going to pull the black dalek off, and I'm going to start loading it into bags. We may do a bit of speedy, but you don't really need to see me struggling trying to get this done, but we'll do what we can. And the little green thing I'm going to show you in a moment, because it's actually been a really handy little tool. So this thing is just basically a corkscrew type thing on a big handle. You can get them in different things, and the idea is that you just pop it into your compost, screw it down, and then pull it back up, so you're bringing the bottom to the top and putting a bit of air into it, especially if it's starting to get a bit icky, sludgy, if you're using a lot of grass and things like that, which is when you need to add your carbon too, so your cardboard and your other stuff, anything brown basically. Didn't cost much. I can't remember its exact cost. It was sort of between 10 and 20 bucks, and it's been invaluable. It's really made a difference. Don't use it so much for the fresh stuff. Occasionally, like if I do get a lot of grass and I need to break it up, but it definitely helps accelerate the breakup of stuff once it's in the middle bin and it's doing its final breakdown. So that's been great for that. Really easy to use. And even with my back, I can get it down about halfway, pull it up, and then just sort of move it around a bit and then get into it and pull it through. If I really need to get right down to the bottom in a short period of time, I enlist the family and they can use it for me. But it's well worth the money I spent on it. Right, as you can see, I couldn't get it off, and so I started just bucketing it, but thankfully one of the family showed up and said no, they can do it. So anyway, they managed to get it off, so that's great. So you can't really see it very well there at the moment, so I might just tip you down a bit for a few minutes. Hang on a sec. Okay, so this is the compost. It's nice and flaky. It's a wee bit dry, but at least it's not soggy. What you want to be able to do is pick it up and squeeze it between your hand, and no water should come out, and it should form a wee clump. That's a wee bit on the dry side, but it's not horrendously dry, so I'm quite happy with that. So I'm just going to work away at popping this into the bags, and then we'll go on to the next bit. that's the middle bin empty. Took me a lot longer than I thought, but it wasn't quite as hard as I thought it was going to be. I actually filled up 6, well, I didn't fill them up, I put them probably to half to 2/3 of those bags that I use normally for the bulk compost. I've kept them and I use them for other things. So I actually filled up 6 of those, plus I had a couple of, well, I think about 3 or 4 buckets at the very end. So I put some around my garlic, which I was going to feed this week anyway, and then I've just started filling up the end of one of the beds where I've pulled all the carrots out and the soil needed a bit of something. So yeah, pretty happy with that. So you see me chucking stuff into the bin behind me. That was stuff that hadn't quite broken down properly, mainly mats of grass. So yeah, we get really wet, thick grass here, so hubby pops in so much of the bin, but he's quite good about not putting too much in, otherwise it just goes slimy. But it can sort of go down to dense, thick mats, so I just threw quite a few of them in there, and they'll just keep breaking down. When I was saying to you about the hydrangea stalks not breaking down, that's one. It's an old one, and that's probably about 3 years old now, and it still hasn't broken down. So quite a lot of them had, and I had chopped them up fairly finely, though obviously not all that finely for some. So what I'm going to do now is I've put the bin back and it's ready, and I'm going to start on this bin here, and I'm going to basically just flick it over from one bin to another. It's its turn, and we'll have a quick look at that and what it looks like at the moment, and that's actually got one of my problems in it at the moment, and I'll show you that. So that's the problem, a big wad of grass, and it had dried out, and it's dry again despite the fact that I watered it the other day, and it just won't decompose when it's dried out. It's just like straw. So I'm going to break that up and flick it into the next bin, and hopefully with a bit of mixing around it'll get moist again and break down in the near future. So next stage, get this off and get started. Okay, so you can't see me, but that's because I've got the camera pointing into the compost bins. But you may wonder why I'm doing it with a hand fork. 2 reasons. A, the bigger fork I can't easily use myself, and I didn't want to lift this off because I'm probably not going to get it all done today. But the main reason why I wanted to do it with the fork is so that sorry if the camera's moving, Lou's just jumped up on the compost bin where the tripod's resting. The main reason is that as I'm doing it, like grabbing a piece out of the bin here, I'm shaking it through and trying to break up the bigger bits, because that's the whole idea of turning it. Now, if I had a big fork and my back wasn't crap, I could do that quite quickly, but I'm just doing it the way I can do it. Same thing, just takes longer, and it's on a smaller scale. Won't get this all done today, but that's okay, hence why I didn't want to take this off. I'll just keep puddling away at it next day. The wind's got up down here, so yeah, I'll probably only last for about another 5, 10, maybe 20 minutes. The wind will drive me in. And yeah, so that's the outside part of composting 101, the Kiwi Barefoot Gardener's way. Yeah, we'll go through it a bit more during the coffee and chat. Just one last wee thing, see if I can bring you in. Some of that stuff is really wet in the middle of the bin I'm picking it up from, so I'm going to probably leave it there now, and in this bin that I'm putting it into, I'm actually going to put a really light sprinkle of more carbon stuff, so some barky stuff, just to lighten it up a bit, because at the moment it's starting to get quite claggy at the bottom of the other bin, so just to add a bit more to it. Yeah, so we'll catch up with that in the next day. Right, it's that time of week for a coffee and a chat, and I've even got one of the banana muffins that I made the other day. So the composting, well, it took me a lot longer to go through and explain to you what I was doing, but I hope that what I have gone through and said makes sense to you. If you have any questions, just pop them down in the comments and I'll try and answer them. The important thing is that I do cold composting. I cut everything up as fine as I can usually, and I wait till it's settled in one bin and then flip it over to the other bin. It takes roughly, at the moment, about 9 months for it to break down completely so that I can use it onto the garden. I don't put it in a perfect state. It often is quite lumpy and things like that. I don't sieve it. Times in the past when it hasn't been perfect, I've popped it in the garden, but what I've done is, rather than just popping it on top, I've trenched and put the compost in a trench and then covered up with dirt to let it finish composting, and that's worked really well for me. I've also done some spot in-ground composting, so if there was something like a pumpkin or a courgette, I might put one of my little green bins that I put all my kitchen scraps in, I might empty that into a hole underneath what I was going to plant my courgette or pumpkin in, cover it up with a wee bit of dirt, then plant my plant on top of it and let it rot down over the summer, giving the plant some extra nutrients as it goes. I might do that this year. I haven't made my mind up yet. I haven't quite finished doing that bin that I left. I need to sieve some more soil for doing seed raising and things like that, so to get the carbon that I need to just lightly sprinkle over that stuff that was just a wee bit too wet and too claggy, but yeah, that should be good. And what will happen is I'll let that rot down in that bin, and at some point, probably in the next week or two, I'll stop using the other bin, start using the newly emptied bin, let the bin that's currently being used compost down for about 6 to 8 weeks, and then flip that in on top of what I've just done. So I won't be using any of that compost that I'm currently making until probably autumn. So yeah, I'll link that video that I was talking about. I'll put it in the description underneath for you to have a look at. The 5 myths of composting, short, sweet and very informative. So the tomatoes went in, I think it was Wednesday. I've just checked them now, and actually there is the sunrise bumblebees up and the roma's up, and there's a couple of others, like I think it was the black cherry. They're just starting to show, so that's good. They're coming up really quickly on those propagator mats, those heated ones with the thermostat, so I'm really pleased with that. Just need to watch that they don't come up and get long and leggy. I might need to move them on to the slightly cooler ones, the 20-degree ones. Love to hear what tomatoes you're growing this year. Pop them down in the comments and see what varieties you get. We have fairly limited varieties in New Zealand, and I know why, because of different tomato viruses and what have you. MPI don't allow certain ones in, well, a lot in. It's to protect our tomato industry as it is at the moment. So what we've got is a good cross selection, and sometimes I wouldn't mind trying a few others, but it is what it is, and the good of the industry is more important than having a nifty looking tomato. I'd like to thank everyone who's subscribed to date. It's awesome. However, if you haven't subscribed yet, please do so. It's free and it really does make my day. If you watch the video all the way through, like and comment. That also helps with the YouTube algorithm, because it can be a bit hard to actually get your channel up and running these days. I'm going to leave it there for me for now. I'm going to have my coffee and muffin. I hope you have a happy and safe and fun week in the garden. And until next week's vlog, it's bye from me.